Hey everybody, this is Kyle from Spotswood Students here bringing you this month's episode of Book Club Parent Edition. If you're unfamiliar with this series, this is a series that we do every month in which we take a book by popular vote from Facebook and Instagram, we read it, and then we feature it on this episode, and we'll be sharing 3 takeaways that we think are valuable for parents when it comes to raising middle schoolers and high schoolers. On this month's episode, we're going to be featuring Enemies of the Heart by Andy Stanley, breaking free from the 4 emotions that control you. Let's get to it. So why this book in particular? We gave 4 options. One of them had to do with homosexuality. Another one had to do with anxiety and depression. Another one had to do with idolatry. And if I'm being honest with you, I'm a little bit surprised that this particular book won out. At least initially I was surprised because, you know, homosexuality and depression, those are 2 hot button topics that a lot of people want to know about. But I imagine this particular book won out because of that keyword, emotions. If you've ever raised teenagers or worked with teenagers, you know that emotions are kind of a big deal. Some of you have probably had teenagers before who have moved from being perfectly what you would consider to be normal 4th and 5th graders. All of a sudden they hit middle school and you find yourself thinking, what happened to my perfect little angel? They have become what I would call emotionally vibrant. You know, it's not that they didn't experience sadness before, but their sadness feels a little bit bluer than it did before. Their anger feels a little bit redder than it did before. So why do I use colors when I talk about emotions with teenagers? Because I like to think about it in terms of packs of crayons. When your kid was a kid before adolescence, think of their emotional spectrum as that of an 8-pack crayon. They knew what sadness was. They experienced anger. They experienced envy. They experienced all these emotions. But chances are the emotions were fairly concrete. You know, the sad was always blue. Anger was always red. Fear was always purple, to use the Inside Out colors, right? There was only one level of it. Well, the problem is when puberty kicks in, it's like going from an 8-pack crayon to a 64-pack crayon when it comes to the emotional spectrum. All of a sudden, there's not just one shade of red, there's multiple shades of red. There's not just one shade of purple, there's multiple shades of purple. And some of these colors begin blending into each other. So it's hard to tell when one emotion is being affected by another and they're being mixed and matched. If you've ever seen the movie Inside Out, that movie is an incredible depiction of what it is like to blend emotions together. So when I counsel parents, I like to tell them, yes, your teenager is far more emotional now than they were when they were a kid, but that's okay. That's a part of growing up. It's because they went from having an 8-pack of crayons and being given a color by number sheet to being given a 64-pack crayons on a blank sheet of paper, and they're trying to figure out how to manage their emotions. So what they need from us is not people to judge them in the middle of their emotions. They need from us people who could help them manage their emotions better and to do it calmly and effectively. So I imagine this tagline, breaking free from the 4 emotions that control you, is probably the reason why this particular book was chosen. So let's start out with a little bit of general info. Enemies of the Heart, the premise of the book is that there are 4 emotions, 4 destructive emotions that reside deep within our heart that sometimes rear their ugly head and give off the impression that they are controlling us rather than us controlling them. If you've ever had that situation happen where you said, I don't know why I said that, or I don't know why I did that, I don't know what I was thinking. Oftentimes that is as a result of these emotions rearing their ugly, monstrous head from deep within our hearts and controlling our behavior. So the whole idea of this book is Andy wants to teach us how we can understand these 4 emotions guilt, anger, greed, and jealousy just a little bit better. And he gives us 4 habits that if we build these habits within our lives, they will help us to manage our emotions better and keep these monsters from becoming monsters that control our behaviors. Those habits are confessing our sin, forgiving those who sin against us, expressing generosity with our resources, and celebrating other people. It's not an overly complicated book. In fact, if you've got an older middle schooler or a high schooler, I would highly recommend the book, especially if they are struggling with any of these 4 emotions. That's it in a nutshell for this book. Like I said, it's not an overly complicated book. So let's get into our takeaways for parents. Here is takeaway number 1. When it comes to our struggles with guilt, anger, greed, and jealousy, our kids often follow in our footsteps, for better or worse. Now, there's a very helpful chapter near the end of the book, chapter 19, called For Your Children's Best. It's actually a chapter that is just on the idea of parenting your kids through these 4 emotions. So if for nothing else, if you're a parent that's wanting to walk your student through these particular emotions, the book is well worth the price of that chapter alone. And the whole idea of the chapter is this idea right here, that if you raise your students in a home in which mom and dad struggle with anger or greed or jealousy, that your kids will inevitably grow up struggling with some of the same emotions. Just like our kids inherit our physical challenges, oftentimes they inherit our spiritual challenges too. This is the idea of more is caught than taught. If you've ever ended up in a situation where you go, that is something my dad would have said, or that is something my dad would have done, of like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm becoming my mom. That is because we often become the people that we spend the most time with, especially when those people are our parents. So the first idea that we have for you is that if your students in many ways are going to end up struggling with the same emotions that you are struggling with because of the way that you depict those emotions in the home, then the first thing that you need to do as a parent is work on these 4 emotions in your own life. So the question I have for you is this: how do you struggle with anger? How do you struggle with jealousy? How do you struggle with greed? How do you struggle with guilt? Because chances are, if you struggle with those particular emotions in your own life, that's going to come out in the way that you raise your family, and your students are going to end up struggling with the same emotions as you. Andy Stanley puts it this way with 2 very valuable quotes. He says that the home environments mirror the hearts of those who head the home. He also says, when it comes to shaping our children's hearts, modeling will always win out over instructions. You probably don't need me to tell you that, but maybe you need me to remind you of that it's not just enough to help our students deal with their own emotions. If we really want to help them, we can't teach them how to deal with their emotions alone. We have to model for them how to deal with these destructive emotions. So let me ask you this: does your kid struggle with anger? Let me ask you this follow-up question: how often do you go off on rants about other people in front of your kids? How often do you find yourself yelling at your kids when you discipline them? How often do you fight loudly with your spouse in front of them? As Andy Stanley says in the same chapter, that kid on the Little League baseball team who blows his top when things don't go his way is usually related to the dad in the stands who's prone to go off on the 16-year-old umpire. If you want your kids to manage their emotions, you need to learn how to manage your emotions, because again, when it comes to dealing with our emotions, our kids are going to grow up struggling with the same ones as us. And more is caught than taught. Let them see in your life how to manage emotions wisely. Here's takeaway number 2. Hurt is often a catalyst for unhealthy emotions, especially in the teenage years. You know, Andy puts it like this. He says the earliest our wounds are often inflicted during childhood. He also says, I feel pretty confident in saying that nobody gets through middle school without a wound or two. Listen, the teenage years, adolescence, can often be filled with hurts. And I don't know about you, but in my life, as Andy says, hurt people often hurt people. And I would imagine that as your student is getting to know these new emotions, there are times that they express them inappropriately. Maybe they blow up at you, or maybe they close themselves off and hide and don't talk at all, which can be especially concerning if you were a parent that had a close relationship with your student and they always talked with you, and all of a sudden they seem like they're not talking at all. Your student can often express these emotions in inappropriate ways, and sometimes that can happen because of hurt in their lives. If we're not careful as parents, we can put ourselves in a situation in which we are treating the symptom rather than the underlying problem. Sometimes we manage the emotional outburst or the student closing themselves off rather than dealing with the thing deep down within their heart that is causing them to have the emotional outburst. Are they closed off? Maybe it's because they feel guilty about something. Are they prone to these outbursts? What's their relationship like with their peers? Are they experiencing stress with siblings? Are they experiencing stress with schoolwork? Or is there a lot of pressure being put on them in the workplace? Are they having fights with their friends? Are they constantly wanting to get the next great video game system and they never seem happy with what they have? Maybe the underlying issue is that they really want to feel valued at school by others, and they think possessions will help them get that recognition. There could be a host of reasons. My encouragement for you, when your student seems to be exhibiting greed or jealousy or anger or guilt, or they seem to be exhibiting an unhealthy manifestation of these things, like an emotional outburst, before dealing with the issue, stop and ask yourself the question, why? And wait until you are emotionally calm to talk with them about it. Sit down with them and say, hey man, I know that you're struggling right now, and I know that you had an emotional outburst. I want to talk about that a little bit. I'm less interested in the outburst than I'm interested in what's going on. Maybe you should ask the question like Andy asks his own kids. How's your heart? What's going on in your life that's pushing you towards a reaction like this? I want to be there for you. I want to help you. If you come across as a parent that just wants to dish out justice and lay down a punishment, they're never going to open up to you. But if you come across as somebody who wants to help them, even if you end up giving them a punishment later for that fits the crime, your first reaction should not be to dish out the punishment. Your first reaction should be, listen, I want to help you walk through this, and I can tell that you're hurting right now. Tell me what's going on. I promise you, if you give off a posture that says, I want to understand first, and I want to help you most important, then your student over time is going to begin to open up to you. Now, let me warn you, these emotions are new for your student. So if you sit down and you ask them, what's going on? I want to help you. Explain it to me. They may not be able to explain it to you at first because they don't necessarily understand what's going on in their own heart. So you may need to ask some follow-up questions like, why do you think you did this? Is there anything that's going on in your life that feels difficult right now? You may need to ask probing questions. It's like when I come home and we have dinner with our family, sometimes we like to ask our 9-year-old son, how was your day? he has a hard time answering that question. He's like, I don't know how my day was. Ask me more specific questions. So we'll ask him, you know, what did you guys do at recess today? What did you guys do? Which did you guys go to the library today? What did you do? What book did you check out? We start asking him more specific questions, and what we find is when the questions are a little bit more concrete, that he begins to open up. You may also find that when you go to your particular student and want to talk about it, they may not be ready to talk about it. Be okay with that. But also be available when they are ready to talk about it. A lot of times late at night is when a student wants to talk about what's going on in their lives. Just make yourself constantly available for them. Spend time with them. If the only time you're ever talking with your students about what's going on in their lives is when they've done something wrong, then they're not going to want to open up with you, because that you only want to talk to them when they've done something wrong. But if you make sure to spend time with them when things are going well, if you make sure to talk about what's going on in your own life, then chances are they're going to want to open up with you at some point in time when they are ready. So be open, be available, and be ready to listen, because it's going to take time for them to figure out how to verbally process what's going on in their lives. But when that time comes and you listen, you can begin speaking into the hurt that they are experiencing rather than simply the emotional outburst. And chances are that is going to help them learn how to control these emotions moving forward rather than the punishment that you may have to dish out. Thank you so much for joining us for this particular session of Book Club Parent Edition. I want to give a shout out to Gina Murray, who is our winner of this month's free copy of the resource. We will get that copy of the book sent out to you. Otherwise, thank you guys so much. Next week, we will post another poll where you can pick a resource that you want us to review. We hope that you guys will participate in that. We look forward to seeing you next time. We love you. Stay safe out there.